Linn Dunn just threw Stephanie White under the bus, and Fever fans are going crazy right now. The front office drama in Indiana has reached a whole new level of messy, and this could change everything for Caitlin Clark's future. This situation is much bigger than you might think, and your boy needs to put an end to the circus that is currently taking place in Indianapolis. Linn Dunn went crazy on social media, and let me tell you something. When front office executives start publicly criticizing coaches, you know that the ship is seriously sinking. Before we get into this mess, let's be honest about what's been happening with this Fever team. Everyone thought they were going to be contenders for a championship this year after bringing in all these veteran players. Players with a lot of playoff experience, like as Dana Bonner and Natasha Howard, were targeted by the Fever. On paper, Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Colson look like a great fit, but since 2003, their team has been less dependable than a dial-up internet connection.
So I had a film breakdown prepared today, but I'm actually going to go a different direction. This is a rant because we have to talk about the state of this Indiana Fever team, and I'm here to bring the reality to all you Fever fans. This team is not a championship team. They're not a championship team. They're nowhere near close to a championship team because every team that is a championship team can play defense. This Indiana Fever team has no defense, and that's like the farthest of their problems. Their offense looked really bad today, and Caitlin Clark obviously didn't shoot the basketball well, but I'm not going to blame this loss on Caitlin Clark, even though obviously they would have won if she would have shot the ball well. My whole thing is you were up when Caitlin Clark wasn't shooting the ball well. You had a double-digit lead in that first half while Caitlin Clark was clanking every single three. She was 2 for 9 from the field, and you were still confidently beating this Aces team. The reason you lost was not because Caitlin Clark didn't score the basketball. The reason you lost is because you stopped doing what was working, what worked for the Indiana Fever.
Wins and defeats aren't the real issue here. Rather, it's how they're exploiting Caitlin Clark, and to be honest, it's becoming absurd. What does Stephanie White do? She is the league's most dynamic offensive player and was the driving force behind the revolution in women's basketball. She removes the ball from her hands and executes this repetitive motion offense that makes it look thrilling to watch paint dry.
Biggest thing is what we have to do as a staff to get her better looks, like higher quality looks. Every game plan is going to be to make her score inside the 3-point line, right? And the different ways that they're going to do that: physicality, coverage, showing bodies, all the different things. And, we have to do a better job of getting her higher quality looks. I'm not worried about Caitlin's shot.
Let me explain this motion offense nonsense to everyone. Essentially, it's a strategy where players wait for someone to become available while passing the ball back and forth. Your nephew's middle school team uses this kind of offense when they are stuck for ideas. The problem is that it would be like buying a Ferrari and only using it in the church parking lot if a colleague like Caitlin Clark committed a traffic infraction.
I'm a real big fan of what she's already been able to accomplish in the spotlight, tremendous spotlight. And I also think that she's going to adjust to the pros better than people think she is. Everybody wondered if Aaliyah Boston would, and look what she did. Aaliyah had good strength when she came in. She came from an outstanding program. She was smart. She was great work ethic, and Clark has all of that too. When you watch Clark, you think, how does she hit those threes from the logo? How does she make those great passes? She's physically strong. She's got great strength in her legs, in her core, and in her hands. And so I'm expecting her to have an impact on the WNBA.
Do you recall Clark's read and react strategy at Iowa? Their most recent triumph over the Liberty was largely due to her decision-making and motivation. She helped the Fever score and assist, which added up to 54 points. This is what happens when you don't try to shoehorn a woman into a pre-established system and instead let her do what she does best. This is where things become very heated. Linn Dunn apparently moved to a senior advisor role, which sounds like corporate jargon for we're moving you aside but don't want you to quit. This post's timing makes it clear that she had had enough. You can't expect players to execute things you don't drill in practice, she wrote on social media. Although that appears to be common coaching advice at first glance, it's very obvious that she is critiquing Stephanie White's team management when you go past the obvious. This came after yet another drab performance in which players hung around not knowing what to do, The offense seemed confused, and Caitlin Clark seemed irritated trying to make something happen in a system that wasn't a good fit for her skill set. Something will ultimately crack, and since the fans aren't holding back, let's talk about what they have to say. It's like watching someone struggle to fit a square peg into a round hole. The fans are turning against Stephanie White, one fan said, while another asked openly why they contributed $180,000 to Katie Lou Samuelson. They are the ones who buy tickets, go to every game, and have been rooting for this team through years of mediocrity. Therefore, they are not just spectators. It's a bigger red flag than the one they raise at NASCAR races when they begin to question the coach this early in the season. The annoying issue is that all of this was expected. A few of us described the same situation as we said months ago that it would be awful to force Caitlin Clark into a motion offense, and that you don't take the most creative and dynamic playmaker in basketball and turn her into just another cog in the wheel. But this is the aspect of the whole situation that truly fascinates me. Perhaps Stephanie White should be more concerned with the offense she is running than the refs, even though she was fined for criticizing officiating. The fact that this club is wasting the best years of a generation of talent in an effort to outsmart everyone else is what's really hurting them, not the officials. Let's look at statistics since they are truthful. Indiana's offensive rating is 25 points higher when Clark is on the court, 107.5, than when she is not, 82.2. That indicates how much this team depends on Caitlin Clark, and when you reduce or eliminate her influence, everything falls apart. The purpose of the motion offense is to elicit player movement and reactions, so why would you want to take away a player like Clark who can see the floor and make passes that other players can't even fathom? This isn't some rookie who needs to learn the game. This is someone who broke scoring records, led Iowa to back-to-back national championship games, broke scoring records, and made women's basketball appointment television. It would be like telling Steph Curry that he can only shoot from the free throw line. And let's not even discuss the taking the ball out of Caitlin's hands philosophy. The real kicker in all of this, though, is that Linn Dunn knows what championship basketball looks like. She was on the coaching staff when the Fever won it all in 2012, so she knows what it takes to create a winning culture. When someone with that kind of experience starts to wonder what's going on, you better pay attention. What's even more frustrating is that other teams are figuring out how to use their star players properly. Take Las Vegas's AIA Wilson or New York's Sabrina. They understand that when you have elite talent, you maximize that talent, not minimize it. The Fever has a lot of ambitious aspirations. Before Indiana's season began, Clark told reporters that she expected them to try to win a championship. However, how can you win a championship if you're not even using your best player to the fullest extent of your abilities? It's like trying to win the Indy 500 at a speed limit. Speaking of championships, let's discuss what this means for the future. The Liberty are looking dominant, and the WNBA is more competitive than it has ever been. The Aces are always dangerous and know how to win, so the Fever need to stop playing it safe and start playing to their strengths if they want to compete with teams like Las Vegas and Connecticut. When you have a player like that, you construct your system around them rather than trying to fit them into it. The timing of all this drama is the most concerning aspect. This squad is constructed around a once-in-a-generation superstar who can alter the game with a single pass or shot, so while the motion offense might work for certain teams, it's not for this club. Stephanie White recently took time off from the team to deal with personal matters. I won't delve into someone's private life, but when your coach is juggling personal matters while your front office publicly questions your tactics, that's not exactly a recipe for success. This isn't just about basketball strategy, it's about organizational philosophy. The fans deserve better than this. They've endured years of rebuilding, disappointment, and watching this team struggle to find its identity. Finally, they get a player who can change everything and make them relevant again. But instead of accepting that, the organization seems determined to overthink it. Do you try to manage everything from the sidelines, or do you trust your greatest player to make plays? These are basic questions that every successful organization must properly address. Do you push your talent to adapt to your system, or do you adapt your system to your talent? The most frustrating aspect is that we're witnessing this unfold in real time, and it's like watching a slow-motion auto accident. You can see the issues and the fixes, but for some reason, the authorities seem intent on making things more difficult than they need to be. Linn Dunn's post might seem unimportant. Now, let's get to the juicy portion of this whole situation. A few social media terms, yet they stand for something much more significant. There is a fundamental dispute about how to use the most significant player in franchise history, a rift inside the organization, and a lack of unity in the vision. Do you recall the relationship to the Connecticut Sun? The motion offense that everyone is screaming about was overseen by Stephanie White, who recently departed the Sun as coach. Naturally, the Sun were successful with it, but their players were different. They lacked Caitlin Clark, who could organize an offensive strategy and elevate everyone in her vicinity. White, however, completely disregards the fact that she now has the most dynamic point guard in the league as she attempts to implement the same strategy she employed in Connecticut when she arrives in Indiana. The chef wastes costly materials by treating them like commonplace, much like a cook who only knows how to make spaghetti. The motion offense philosophy is all about equality, making sure that everyone touches the ball and giving role players opportunities, even though basketball isn't a democracy. Take a look at how Clark performed under Lisa Bluer at Iowa. She thrived on the read and react system because it allowed her to use her basketball IQ. When you have a player who is clearly the best on the court and who can make shots for herself and other players that no one else can, you have a meritocracy. You get out of the path and pass the ball to that guy. Because the system capitalized on her strengths rather than trying to hide them, Clark was able to make snap decisions that other players couldn't, average over 8 assists per game, and score 28 points. However, in this motion offense, Clark is essentially being asked to play a part in her own team's offense. She's supposed to move the ball, set screens, and wait for the system to create opportunities for her rather than creating opportunities for herself and others. It's ineffective, which is precisely why Linn Dunn felt compelled to speak up. Let's also discuss the effect this is having on Clark's development in her second year. This should be the year she moves up to the next level, going from Rookie of the Year to MVP candidate. But instead she's stuck trying to figure out a system that doesn't fit her skill set and is frustrated that she can't play the way she knows she can play the numbers. When Clark is given the opportunity to lead the offense and has the ball in her hands, the Fever's offensive efficiency soars. However, when she is forced to play spot-up shooting or is removed from the court, the team finds it difficult to score points on a regular basis. When White finally allowed Clark to take over in the fourth quarter, she went off for 32 points and completely changed the game. This is what happens when you stop trying to fit a square peg into a round hole and just let elite talent be elite. It makes this even more frustrating because we've seen glimpses of what this team can be when they let Clark cook in that victory against the Liberty. The matter is made even more complicated by the situation surrounding Dana Bonner. Her personal absence from the squad is totally justified and deserving of respect, but it also demonstrates how dependent this motion offense is on specific players playing specific roles. Your system becomes weak when key components are lacking, since it is based on player and ball movement rather than individual talent. On the other hand, a system built on Clark's advantages is more robust. Whether Bonner is there and whether Sophie Cunningham is feeling well. The fact that Clark is still able to offend both herself and other people is the joy of possessing a transcending gift. Because they don't depend on everyone else to act appropriately at the correct time, they can survive accidents and personnel changes. When front office executives start subtweeting coaches, when supporters publicly criticize hiring decisions, and when former players share their thoughts on offensive philosophy, the controversy's social media component shows how deeply irritated they are. These behaviors show a severe breakdown in the communication and decision-making process and are not typical of an organization. Philosophical alignment is more significant than practice preparation, as demonstrated by Linn Dunn's tweet about drilling what you expect players to execute. Another illustration of this larger problem is the Katie Lou Samuelson contract, which is the subject of fan complaints. Abusing your franchise star while paying role players large sums of money conveys an incomprehensible message about organizational priorities. There will be issues that go far beyond X's and O's if your coach is putting into practice a totally different strategy while your front office supports a different one. It's like paying expensive support vocalists and expecting your major act to lip sync. The team's offensive rating dropped to 82.2 after Clark missed those 5 games early in the season due to injury, underscoring the offensive system's poor design. Clark is not only a very good player, but everything goes down when your top player isn't present to maintain the system functioning properly. Since no one else possesses the basketball IQ necessary to manage such a complicated system efficiently, everything breaks down when Clark is in charge of planning everything. Now, will Stephanie White swallow her pride and alter her approach to make better use of Clark's advantages? One player shouldn't have to shoulder the entire responsibility. A well-designed offensive should include backup plans and different strategies. This motion offensive, however, is not as adaptable. Numerous companies would be eager to try if the Fever are unable to realize the full potential of Caitlin Clark's talent. Although Clark's contract predicament won't be a problem for some time, issues caused by organizational dysfunction can extend well beyond the basketball floor. Do we keep going down this path of dysfunctional organization while one of the world's top players is squandered in an inefficient system, or does the front office step in and make changes to ensure their franchise player is being used properly? You don't try to normalize a generational talent like Caitlin Clark. Instead, you cherish her particular qualities and adjust everything to make the most of them. Respect for outstanding skill, what makes players unique, and the game itself are all important in this context. This Linn Dunn episode is just the beginning, believe me. To be honest, I'm here for all the mayhem, and this front office drama is just getting started. The decisions the Fever make in the coming weeks might decide whether they blow this incredible chance or, at last, build something unique around the most significant player in franchise history. This will get a lot messy before it gets better if nothing changes soon. Caitlin Clark's prime years, do you believe Stephanie White should change her system or keep to her principles? Please hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment below for more WNBA drama.